Okay. Hello and welcome. I'm Jennifer Castleton with Build Exact, and I'm here today with AJ Ballantine. Excuse me, I'm stumbling on your name. Who's the founder and CEO of Render. And not only that, but the founder and CEO of Cornerstone Remodeling. So AJ's going to tell us a little bit, build his credibility with us, and then he's going to take us through some slides, and then we're going to have an opportunity to ask questions. So get
Awesome.
settled and let us know where you're calling in from. But I'm going to pass it over to you, AJ, to tell us a little bit more. First of all, what is Render and what are you doing with Render?
Sure. Yeah. So, like you said, I own two businesses. So, Cornerstone, the first one I'll mention before I get to Render, has
Sure.
been my life. So, I grew up in the trades. I started working with a hammer, actually with power tools. My grandfather's shop was the first experience I had with working with power tools, and it was great building furniture all the way up through college and my early adulthood. I started Cornerstone Remodeling when in 2011 when we were expecting our first son. So it's a design build company. It's something that I'm very passionate about. This industry has been kind of shaped around the idea of bringing a lot of the elements of the remodeling process in house, and I loved that. And since then, I've grown Cornerstone Remodeling up to about an $8 million organization. We have 22 full-time employees. And over the past couple of years, we've really been dialing a lot of processes that have actually allowed me to step completely away from the organization. I might have 2, 3 hours a week that I work in my remodeling business. So therefore, with all my free time that I now currently have, I'm not just sitting back and enjoying my retirement at my mid 30s. I launched Render back in 2022 with my business partner, and it's a really awesome tool for the design build industry. It's really for the home improvement industry overall. We have a tool it really was birthed out of this idea of remote engagement for the space. So if you think about what DoorDash was able to do for a lot of these brick and mortar mom and pop businesses, restaurants that, didn't have a way to take orders online, didn't have a way to deliver, DoorDash came in and said, "Hey, we'll help you connect with customers completely remotely." Well, Render is basically a DoorDash for the home improvement industry, where Jennifer, if you wanted your kitchen done and you're 6 states away, I could say, "Hey, I'm going to send you a link from my phone." You would get that link instantly. You'd be able to walk around the room with your phone, scan your space, and what it does is it digitally maps the entire room, creates a floor plan on the spot, and as soon as you hit save, yes, I'm done. I have your floor plan. I have your CAD files. I have pictures of your space, elevations that show me where all the doors and windows are completely remotely. I don't need to visit you in your home to make sure that you can get an estimate on your kitchen. So what this turned into was more than just a remote engagement tool because we're talking about old processes and kind of disrupting that. And the process is like you go to the person's home, you shake their hand, you look them in the eye, and it's still very applicable. So what we did was we added a lot of workflow extensions with Render so that even when you're in person, you go through and you can scan a room with your phone. Now I can actually get that into my design software like instantly, especially with Chief Architect is probably one of the ones that we're most closely integrated with. And soon 2020, uh, we can get that design, the as-built created almost instantly. And now we're working with Build Exact. We're working on an integration with you guys to get the what we're calling the parameter data. So we're collecting a lot of information about the space, square footage, paintable wall square footage, linear feet of cabinets, square footage of countertops, number of fixtures in space. Gosh, we're picking up toilets and sinks and faucets. We're basically trying to get as close as we can to helping contractors with one of the biggest pain points that has existed for decades is I hate estimating. I hate sitting down and putting together an estimate, especially early on, right? Especially before we're price qualifying these clients, we spend a lot of time on lost leads. And so Render is a tool that can help us reduce the amount of time that we're spending on lost leads, accelerating the sales cycle. So there's my elevator pitch for Render. If you want to check it out, it's rendr.com. Check us out. And, perhaps there's some conversations that we can have about, how come work in your business too,
Yeah, so one of the things that stands out in my mind, I know I read one of your case studies about, and I just can imagine this is so common where you go into somebody's house and they've got stuff all over the place. But this particular case study was about some a company that would go into like flooded basements, and there people who have flooded basements have stacks of things against the wall and all this other stuff. But when you use a tool like Render, you can measure without moving those things, right? I mean, it just,
It's awesome. We could probably share horror stories, probably with a lot of people on this call, of homes that we've seen that should be on TV on the show Hoarders. This ignores a lot of clutter. It uses AI to pick up specific pictures that we've trained it to pick up, and it ignores everything else. So it's not going to pick up the toasters or the bag of chips on the counter. It's literally looking for a wall and a cabinet and countertop and a sink. So yeah, it ignores clutter. It helps you, kind of measure spaces quickly. It's a LiDAR tool on a mobile phone or a mobile device, so it's never going to be perfect. And this is one of the things that I've always said, like it helps you get to where you want to go faster, right? So there are still some things people ask me, how accurate is it? Because I'm down to the eighth of an inch. Well, so am I. But it always comes back to that old adage, measure twice, cut once. And we realized that we were always measuring twice. We were measuring first in person down to that eighth of an inch, and then we were measuring again prior to placing cabinet orders. Because inevitably someone input something wrong. How many times have we put in a 60-inch door when it was supposed to be a 6.0 door? And we would always go back and double check those measurements. So we said, well, why do we have to be so precise on that first one? Let's get close enough faster so that we can reduce the amount of time that we're spending up front. And then when the job moves forward, we're going back to double check those measurements anyway. We'll make some tweaks. And that's the huge process change that we made, and kind of probably a perfect segue to talk about what we want to talk about today, which is really building trust with millennials. Is that one of the things that we discovered, and I'll get into this in a minute, is that millennials prioritize several things in a buying process, but two of the most important things that they prioritize are speed and convenience. And I've said this before, speed and convenient, there's nothing fast or convenient about a remodeling project, especially the sales part and the design part. I mean, we're talking months of getting to where we want to go. So we said, okay, well, if we dump 8 or 10 or 12, sometimes 20 hours into a project before we're even getting the thumbs up or the maybe on a project, well, how much of that can we reduce? So we changed our process a little bit. And we realized as we're starting to do that, starting to become more faster and more convenient, like, okay, now we're getting these things out the door faster. I'll share with you my time table, my sales cycle reduction that we've had success with at Cornerstone. But as we started to do this, become faster and more convenient to sell better to millennials, we realized, well, holy crap, we're actually helping our business operations like in dramatic ways. Like our sales cycle is declining. We're handling leads faster. We're cycling through them faster. We're not spending any more money on marketing, but I'm selling a whole lot more. And it's all just because now I've optimized my business to run so much better. And just turns out millennials like to shop that way. So it's been a really cool experience running both the software company and remodeling company and marrying the two together, just to see how well the two things work, in
yeah,
tandem.
absolutely. And we did the same thing. We commissioned some research with BuildExact to look at what the builders' challenges were, especially within their supplier network, and the getting speed of response and being able to get a quote back to the homeowner fastest was the number one reason why they were selected. And so if you can be in their hands faster, and we've actually just launching an AI calculator tool that's informed by all the builders and the contractors who've been using our BuildExact for a long time. So that's another way to get faster and get in front of the homeowners. So next, though, we want to look at what you have, and we want to see what some of this research proved and what you've learned through your experience. So do you want to go ahead and pull up your slides?
Sure, absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah, I have a couple of slides here, which you should be able to see now.
Looks good.
Okay. So this is from a deck that I led a seminar on regarding shifting a little bit of a paradigm shift for modeling companies to think about the way that they run their processes through their business and making tweaks along the way, turning couple of those dials so that they can prep themselves to sell better to millennials. And like I said, at the same time that we're doing that, we are now beginning to optimize the performance of our business because of the way that millennials like to shop. And I think that a lot of other industries have done this very well. And the home improvement industry statistically just falls behind a lot of other adjacent industries, health, food, retail. And now we're finally starting to look at this and say, okay, well, if millennials are really going to be who we're selling to over the next 2 decades, how do they shop? And how do we sell well to that? So one of the things that I spoke about and I would love to touch on here is that, this webinar is talking about building trust and understanding the millennial mind and being able to shift and sell well to that. So the first thing is like establishing like why. There's probably people on this call and people that'll listen to this and say, well, I'm mostly selling still to the Gen X and I'm selling to boomers still a lot. And that is absolutely still the case for a lot of people. We still sell a lot to boomers. We love our boomer customers. We love our Gen Xers. But we have seen a dramatic shift in our geography. We're Baltimore, D.C. in the United States. A lot of younger buyers coming through the pipeline. And, this is new for us over the last several years, and it will continue to be kind of a new phenomenon for a lot of people. And the reason why is that, our millennials have been late to the scene. Statistically, they're marrying 7 years later. They are having kids 4 years later, and of course, buying homes, which is the important one for us, 8 years later than their boomer parents did. And so all of this develops some stereotypes that we're trying to, kind of shake off. We're not still living in our parents' basement. I am a millennial. I'm right in the middle of that millennial demographic. We're not living in our parents' basements anymore. We are actually reaching our peak earning years. And so I'll share a couple of statistics with you guys just to kind of validate the fact that we need to pay attention to how we're selling now and why the millennial component is important. Millennials, they're between now 28 and 44 years old. This was from December, so apologies. 28 and 44. So again, I'm smack dab in the middle. There's 70 million millennials just in the US alone, becoming the largest share of homeowners. So one of the really fun statistics is that since 2017, millennials have outpaced every other generation in home purchases since 2017. And if you recall, in 2021, we set every real estate record that is available to set, right? From number of homes being purchased to overall money that just kind of went into the real estate market, historically low interest rates for mortgages. I think the U.S. Census Bureau put out one that said that or Jay Burns put this out, where 80% of mortgages held by U.S. banks are sub 5%. And now if you're cringing because you just purchased a home this year and you're at that 6.5%, that's a little devastating to hear. But 4 out of 5 homes owned in the U.S. or owned in the U.S. right now are sub 5%. That bodes really well for the remodeling industry. So if we look at, who's going to be remodeling their homes, remodeling activity typically flourishes after the first few years after buying a home. And, we haven't really seen this boom. Of course, we experienced it in 2021. It's kind of like that lag from COVID that kind of hit us. But we haven't really seen this big boom, and especially, with how economically tight things have been. There's fears of recession and there's a lot of talks about inflation. But I'm really excited about the position the home improvement industry is in right now. If we pull back to 100,000 feet, widen the aperture a little bit, macroeconomics, the really cool thing about inflation is that, it's all bad, bad, bad. But one of the cool things that inflation did was that it dramatically increased the net worth of the millennial generation. These millennials have been buying homes since 2017, low, and now all of a sudden these home prices just kind of went through the roof. Now these will level off and tail off, but ultimately these millennials just borrowed the cheapest money to ever borrow, and their home prices just went up overnight. And they have a loan that is now easier to pay back with the cheaper money that exists now. So, of course, I'm not glorifying all of this, but a lot of those things are really interesting, especially when you start to break down who we sell remodeling projects to. NARI put out a study that showed that remodeling activity increases sharply when the homeowners reach their mid-30s. It's dramatic. And if you think about what happens in your mid-30s, usually you're settling down or settling in. Your kids are getting a little older. You don't want to move schools, and you really just need more space. Your kids are getting bigger. Your homes are getting older. Oh man, gosh, if you're following me, like we're marrying a lot of things together. Millennials outpacing every other generation in home purchases. Now they're reaching their peak earning years. They're settling in. They're not wanting to move. They have mortgages under 5%. Their net worth is, climbing rapidly, kind of putting them back on the scale with Gen X and Boomers for the age that they were at the time. What does this mean for us? It means if you haven't seen it yet, mark my words, you can write this date on your calendar. AJ said this. Millennials are going to be the primary person you're selling to for the next 10 to 15 years. So how do millennials like to shop? I believe I have this. Yeah. So a couple of things that we studied were okay. Millennials have different habits than their parents did, right? We don't do the same things that our parents did. Open and adaptive to change because we've had to. We have seen so many things change over the course of the last 15 years. I mean, we went from seeing car phones in cars all the way up till 2006 disappear, and now we've got mobile computing in our hands. So we're open and adaptive to change, and we also like to disrupt the status quo. Just because our parents liked blue and pink wallpaper in their homes doesn't mean we do. Just because our parents liked traditional dining rooms doesn't mean that we do. So if we look at all those things and we say, okay, millennials like to shake things up a bit, and so we prioritize things that I think are no-brainers, obvious to most people. It's the fact that we love speed, everything fast. I want to be able to order my food on my phone, go to the store and pick it up and walk out the door. We love convenience. It's so much easier to shop on Amazon than it is, to drive myself out to the store and go pick up whatever it is I'm going to pick up. I even do this with groceries now. Um, we love speed, we love convenience, we love technology, and we love interpersonal interactions, non-retail transactions. We love the interpersonal side of it. We love to be a part of the research up front. We're what I call pre-educated consumers. We don't like to go to, and I say we, forgive me. It's just we as millennials like to research the cars before we go to the dealer to buy one. We don't want a salesperson telling us what's best for us. We want to decide for ourselves what's best for us. Where am I going with all this is if you think about the home improvement industry, there's nothing fast, there's nothing convenient, and there's hardly any transparency that we can offer so that homeowners are coming to us well prepared for this very extensive journey that they're about to be on. And if they are educated about remodeling, usually it's with really bad information. I love the AI calculator tool that you guys are putting together because one of the hardest things that we have as remodelers is to educate homeowners on how much we expect this thing to cost because their expectation is, I'm going to spend 40 to 50 on this kitchen and we're like, oh, it's like 150. And we're letting them down gently, but ultimately they had bad expectations. Maybe they would spend 150 if that's what they were, thinking it was supposed to cost. So how do we as remodelers respond to, a lot of these things? Well, speed and convenience, I have a lot to say on that. But if we go all the way back, a lot to say as far as like tactical things you can do to improve operations in your company. But if we pull all the way back to just the simple stuff, building transparency or building trust with millennials is built a lot on transparency. And, I've said this a lot, and transparency doesn't have to mean that you have to show your homeowners your profit and loss or your job costing spreadsheet, how you put the numbers together, how much you're making on the job. There are a ton of ways to build transparency. Just the fact that, probably most of the people listening to this are using BuildExact, a construction management software that allows your homeowners to peer deep into the project. You're giving them, if you're not using these tools from BuildExact right now, you definitely need to begin that journey. In having the communication from the beginning running through BuildExact gives you a timetable. It'll protect you, but it gives them the transparency, right? Setting expectations early on about what this process will entail. You can do that from your website, from that initial consultation, shaking their hand, saying, this is exactly what's going to happen from here on out, and then making sure that you're executing well on those things. That comes down to process, systems that run throughout your organization to make sure that you're not dropping the ball on something. But when you can give them access to their financials through BuildExact. Let them see the invoices, let them see the change orders, let them, track where they are. Millennials love this stuff. We're not Excel spreadsheet people, but we're Google Sheet people. We love to see where these numbers are changing. When you as a contractor can help them through the entire process and never miss a beat, they're never not in the know when they want to be in the know. You just give them access to these things. All of that is incredible to be able to build your credibility with your homeowners. Those things are drastically important. If we come all the way back to like the technology side, again, using BuildExact is critical for this. From a person-to-person interaction, millennials love that piece. But we don't just want to do this for millennials. We also want to make sure that we're getting something out of it too. Getting the sale is great. But everything else that I've mentioned here, and I'll come off of my monologue here in a second. I'll kind of, as they say, land the plane, corporate speak. A lot of the things that you decide to do, you need to make sure that there's a lot of benefits for your business. Like I said, when we started down this journey of selling well to millennials, we realized that there were a lot of opportunities for us to optimize the operations throughout our business. And as we did that, we began to sell really well to this new millennial generation. And we are, I have to say, we have shortened our sales cycle because of the speed and convenience factor. We wanted to save ourselves the time up front. We said we don't want to spend a whole lot of hours on projects that aren't moving forward in the design process. We have a very finite point in time where our customers actually have to pay a substantial amount of money for us to continue talking to them. So the time up front before that is somewhat pro bono. We charge a little bit, but it's not enough to really compensate us for the amount of time we spend. So we needed to reduce that, but still give them this amazing deliverable. So what used to take us 12 hours of our personal time now takes us 90 minutes because Render is helping us get the scans into the CAD software. We can kind of pump through and do that. And then, of course, getting all the numbers spit through templates that you can build for your estimates and getting those proposals put together. You can pack a punch in a very limited amount of time. Because of what we did at Cornerstone, we had roughly about a 12-week cycle to get from the time that a lead came in the door to really pushing this thing over that threshold of getting them to pay that huge chunk. Now we've gotten it down to less than 4 weeks. Now, when they pay that big chunk and we want to still impress the homeowners, that would take roughly about, when they pay that amount, they would wait for that first proposal and the first really meaty proposal and that first detailed drawing. Used to take us 4 to 6 weeks on top of that. We're now 7 days to turn around, 7 days, because we collected the measurements so early on, we can get started right away. And in 7 days, they're getting that first pass proposal. I mentioned this about 10 minutes ago. It's a paradigm shift. We're now no longer having to sell our value to the millennials. They trust us because we said, this is how long it's going to take, and you're going to do this and this and this. And all of those things were impressive, and we were able to execute on them very well. But the paradigm shift is now we're no longer selling them on the value. We're just making them doubt the value of everybody else that comes in after us. Like you said, the speed to getting that first estimate out the door into their hands is critical. Over 60% of all contracts awarded to contractors go to the one who got it to them the fastest. Because what does it say about you as a contractor? Well, they got this done so quickly and it looks like $1 million. This is great. All these other companies are taking 3, 6, 10 weeks to get us something. I don't think they can pull this project off as well as this company. So we're now making them doubt the proficiency of other companies, other competitors that would still probably do a great job on the project. But now we've planted a seed that they just can't shake off, and none of our competitors can keep up. So with that, I'll kind of pause because I just went through a lot of stuff. That's basically all the slides I'll go through because I kind of just spitballed a lot. But as you can tell, I have a lot more to say on this, but I'll pause here and see if you or anybody else has questions.
Sure, awesome. What a great presentation. I love this, and I do have a lot of questions. So you did mention that, excuse me, that that 30-year-olds, mid-30s is when people do the most remodeling.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk about that a little bit more, and how can a remodeler target that type of audience?
Great. That's a great question. The average annual pro homeowner improvement spending goes up from these stats are kind of funky, but it goes up almost 50% when they reach their mid 30s. And that actually continues on all the way through their 50s. So it's like very minimal, but then all of a sudden the mid 30s come and then boom, you're right up there with the top spending generations. Targeting them, I feel like coming from a millennial is pretty easy for me to do, but saying it to other people, where do they shop? 80% of them are on Facebook. Let's start there. There's a conglomeration of things that you can do to outreach to millennials. Building trust is huge. Making sure that you have a phenomenal looking website is like curb appeal. Having presence on social media is just brand awareness. It's like perception. You want to have good reviews. Millennials, there's a statistic. I actually put this up because I thought this would be kind of a fun thing to say today is give me 1 second here. Edelman Trust Barometer found that 62% of millennials have little to zero trust in businesses compared to just 28% of boomers. 28% of boomers had little to zero faith in businesses, 62% of millennials. So there's a huge delta of like trust issues. So building transparency, shedding light on your business, reviews from people that you can't affect. Google, Facebook, those are incredibly important. Getting up to 50 Google reviews is a huge statement. And especially if that's like a 4.8 or higher, that's where you focus. That's where you're going to get a lot of your millennials. Social media is great. And of course, depending on your geographic areas, there's so many other things that you could take into consideration, but starting with those two things is incredibly important. And again, I'll come back to the statement I made earlier is that millennials don't like to be sold to. They want you to help them as their guide. There's a great book called Story Brand, Building Your Story Brand, that talks about you helping them discover for themselves what they need, and you're just here to help. The information piece, educating them. We started this blog. I wouldn't call it a series, but we had a series of blogs that went out. We focused on, okay, what do people searching before they know they need to renovate their homes? And it's not, oh, I need a remodeler near me, because that's what everybody does on Google. They just get those keywords. We said, well, what would I search if my in-laws, think about the ages, 35 to 45, maybe in-laws are thinking about moving in. What do people do when the in-laws move in? Like we started to go into like the psychology of having your in-laws move in. And here are remodelers putting out this article. There's a ton of information you can find on ChatGPT and all this. So we started to put blogs out that were kind of like informative. Here's how people fund these types of projects. What are the zoning regulations in my area? Can I even build an addition this big? Hey, we'll tell you all about the zoning regulations in Howard County, Maryland. Well, next thing you know, now they're on our website. They're coming to us for information. Who do you think they're going to call in a month, or email or text or chat? Who do you think they're going to go to when they need to pull this renovation off? They're going to come to us.
Yeah.
So it works well.
If anybody else has questions, just put them in the chat. But I have another question. This is like critical. So you've got your remodeling business, and I'm sure you have subs or you have full-time employees or whoever who are not embracing technology. Yet you have this technology that you want to use to connect to these homeowners, not only for efficiencies for your business, but also for the homeowners, as you just talked about. They like technology, they like convenience, they like efficiency. So how are you making those two worlds collide without
I would say this. So there's two answers here. One is for your homeowners. You really have to meet them where they are. If they're not going to adapt the technology, you have to push and prod and get the basics. Like we do not allow our customers to not sign our contracts digitally. That's like the number one. If they don't want to communicate through, the construction management tools, okay, we'll make some concessions because we know that not everybody's going to be comfortable with it. But there are some bare bones things that will allow for to kind of adapt to where our homeowners are. For employees, get on the boat or this boat will leave without you. We have outgrown, unfortunately, and I don't say this as like a champion. Unfortunately, we have outgrown some of our most dearest employees' ability to adapt to the company that we really needed to be successful. There's nothing against them. They were phenomenal carpenters, and it's just our company was outgrowing them, and we had to mutually agree that this is just not going to work. Oh gosh, we tried so hard too with some of these guys, and it was hard to say, look, we've got to keep going, and if you can't do this, then we've got to move on without you. So you do have to kind of hold your guns and say, I'm not going to allow this employee to not do the things I know I need them to do just to have them stick around, because all the other employees will doubt your authenticity, and they'll start disrespecting like your process. Well, if this guy doesn't have to do it, I'm not going to do these job logs. That creates some chaos. So
Right. Well, AJ, it has been such a pleasure. I know we're at our time. Thank you so much. And thank you everybody for joining us. And we'll look forward to seeing what Build Exact and Render Together can bring us. So thanks.
I'm looking forward to it.
All right. Stay well.
Hey, thanks, guys.